It would seem as though.
Hey. Hello.
Ooh,
Hi.
Musical.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Hi. Welcome.
How are you?
Well, it's my birthday, so I'm doing very well.
Wait,
Thank you so
it's your
much.
birthday?
Yeah, it's my birthday.
I had not heard.
Had you not? Because
I had not. I didn't know a thing about it. Welcome to another week of It Would Seem As Though, the podcast where we talk about anything, everything, and Annika.
And Annika. Mostly Annika.
This week we are going to do some talking about Annika because today, as we're recording, it is her birthday.
Yeah.
And what's funny is, so T and I were talking this morning about your birthday.
Okay.
Because I was just refreshing his memory as to what we're doing.
Right.
You know, whatever. And I said, can you believe that when you met her, she was 14? And he goes, she wasn't even quite 14. She was 13 going on 14 because he met you in the fall.
Yeah.
And your birthday obviously is in January. So you were just minutes from turning 14 and here you are 21 years later.
That's insane.
It is insane. Yeah. It is crazy because, you know, here you were, this sweet little angel baby who was, you know, the most shy.
Yeah, the most shy.
Because literally at 13,
yeah,
you were the shyest kid I've ever known.
Yeah.
Who was like, I mean, when you were with us, when you were with family, of course you could be you. And whatever.
Totally.
But when you were out in public, it was like, don't look at me. Don't talk to me. Why are you looking at me? Are you looking at me? Don't look at me.
I'll be like, I have to go to the bathroom. And then I would have to go find like a single person bathroom. And I would have to, and I'd be like, can you ask where the bathrooms are? Like, I'm not going to do it. I need you to
also
do it.
usually had to have someone guard the bathroom.
Guard the door. Yep.
Right.
Oh,
well, but you also had some creepers following you.
Do you know, I didn't realize that was such a... I mean, I knew that it was weird, right? Obviously, I know it's weird. But I didn't realize until talking about it over the past few years that, like, Jesus, there were several times in my life where there were creepy men who, like, followed me around stores or in restaurants or, like, home. You know, it was really weird. And several times. I can think of 3 times just off the top of my head, you know? But it was awful.
And I can think of 2 times that I was with you when it happened.
Right?
And it's like, what the fuck is wrong with people?
Right. It was so weird.
You were a child.
A little baby. Yeah. Weird, right? Little. Anyway, but yeah, thinking of 13-year-old Annika to 35-year-old Annika, that's very different. You know what I mean? That's a very different person.
Because now you're a badass bitch who's all, fuck the world.
Yeah, I don't care about none of that. But God, yeah, 13. Anyway, so it's my birthday. As you know, and you've probably heard on the podcast, I celebrate my birthday pretty much all month because why not? Right?
Well, it is, you know, almost the last day of the month. So, yeah, it gives you literally the whole... Whereas mine is like, you know, close to the beginning of the month.
You know, it wouldn't even matter for me. Even if I had your birthday, you know, I would still celebrate...
May is your birthday.
I would have May as my birthday, just the whole month. Yeah. I would use it's my birthday as an excuse until it turned to June. Do you know what I mean?
Fair. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking this morning I was thinking about your birthday, right?
Yeah.
And I remember one time when you were pretty young.
Okay.
I don't remember how young. You were, I would say somewhere under 10. You know, but not like baby. You were, you know, old enough to carry on a conversation. Of course. And we took you to a restaurant that used to be here called Farrell's.
Okay, I know
it was an ice cream. You know, like it was around Portland for a very, very long time, and it was supposed to be all old timey and old fashioned. Yeah. And, you know, was whatever kind of turn of the century.
I kind of remember clowns. For some reason.
I guess so.
Yeah. Okay.
But they did this thing where if it was your birthday, they would bring out your ice cream like on this thing that looked like a stretcher. Yeah. And they would sing and make a big fuss. And they got to us and told you to stand up on the table. Yeah. Or on the bench. On the table. Yeah. And instead of that, Annika crawled under the table.
And cried.
Like we were like trying to beat her. It's like, we're trying to give you dessert. What's wrong with you? But that was when I realized just exactly how painfully shy you were.
It's pretty severe. I remember crying. I remember covering my face, so I have no visual memory. I just have, like, the sound, and I just the staff being, like, uncomfortable, and someone was hitting, like, a drum, like a big bass drum.
Yes.
And that's what
marching band, big bass drum.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I remember they were hitting it, and I started crying, and I remember he just kept playing the drum, and I was so upset. I was just like, there's too many people looking at me. Like, quit perceiving me, you know, like... I didn't enjoy it. Oh, poor little traumatized Annika. Jesus Christ. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
But because it is your birthday, I also wanted to say...
Oh, no.
No, I just wanted to say, because, you know, we've been tight since, well, you were born.
Yeah.
And my relationship with you has always been super special, you know, and so I think a lot about how grateful I am to have you. You know, because we've been through some shit together.
Girl.
You know, and I was there to watch you grow up and to, like, help you through some interesting times. But you're also... I was talking about this the other day at work, that you are the person that I can say literally anything to, and you won't go, God, you're awful. You'll be like, yeah, right?
Yeah.
You know, I can say the cuntiest thing, and you don't ever go, you're terrible.
No, right, never.
Whereas, and so for me, as most of you know, I have my mother living with us who has dementia, and so oftentimes I become really exhausted by her.
Oh, yeah.
And I understand everything that's going on with her, but for the caretakers, it's not easy.
No.
You know, no matter how much you know, whatever.
Yeah.
And the fact that I can come talk to you and be like, oh my God, that old woman. Because most people, if I said that, they'd be like, God,
how dare you?
You know she has dementia. Be nice. And I'm like, I do know. But I also know that I have to blow off steam so that I can
still
put
be
up
there
with her nonsense and be nice and whatever. I mean, a perfect example was yesterday. Her phone was ringing, and I said, are you going to answer that? And she just looked at me like, what?
Why would
I mean, and her phone is loud. But her phone's ringing, and I was like, are you going to get that? And she looks down to the stack of books. Her phone's under a stack of books on her side on the couch. And she just looks down at it and then was like, whatever. Yeah. And goes back to what she's doing.
Okay.
And so it was all, did you need to see who called you? Because whoever it was left a message.
Sure.
She goes, what are you talking about? When your phone rang a few minutes ago, somebody left a message. I didn't hear it. I don't know how you didn't hear it. The neighbors heard it. It is that freaking loud. And I was like, well, your phone rang. And so she opens it up to her text messages.
Sure.
She's like, well, the only call I have here is from Parker. And I said, those aren't calls, those are texts.
Yep.
What are you talking about? And so I'm trying to, without, being like, oh my God, old lady, whatever. Listen. And I was like, those are texts. You have to back out of there and you'll see who called you. Yep. And she just got all mad and frustrated. Then... as she does every day after she's kind of a bitch to me. Yeah. Then she'll be like, I'm sorry that I was that way. I'll never do it again. And it's like,
yes, you will.
You will.
In about
do
5
it again
minutes.
Tomorrow. You'll probably do it again today. And it becomes rather exhausting. So the fact that I have you to come and go, she make me crazy. Yeah. It makes it so that I have that little pressure relief valve. So I can just be like, okay, I can go back to being my, my average level bitch
instead of Lizzie Borden.
Yeah, right. Because there are days.
Oh, girl.
There are days.
She was in my house for 3.5 hours yesterday, talking in circles. And so I understand, and followed me. I went over to your house, the main house, and back, and she just followed me.
It was actually rather comical to watch. And then my dog wanted to follow you too.
I know.
And so as soon as you got here, he's like at the window, just kind of, whimpering. And I was like, what is it? And he doesn't usually make any noise. Except when he snores. But I was all, what is happening? So I opened the door, and he literally ran out the door, ran over to your porch, and was sitting facing your door, staring at your door like something's going to happen. I'm like, do you expect the door to just magically open? And then when y'all came back to change your laundry, he just followed you back, waited for you, then followed you back to your porch. I was like, well, so you had a little train of, you had my daughter, my mother, and the dog all trailing behind you. I was like, well, she's the Pied Piper.
It was a lot yesterday. Yesterday was a lot. But thank you. That was very sweet. I feel very much the same way about you in most regard. There's There's nothing in the world that I don't tell you. You're the first person that I tell kind of everything to, you know?
Yes.
People are like, you can't tell anyone this. And I say, okay, that doesn't include you. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
I won't tell.
Oh, God, no. You know, that's the thing about secrets.
Yeah.
First of all, I tell people, if I really literally can tell no one, please don't tell me.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to tell T and I'm going to tell you.
Yep.
You know,
exactly.
and it's like, because I tell you, yeah, this is not for public consumption, whatever.
Yeah.
And I know that it will go no further, and that's fine. But I can't carry around secrets.
No, and I feel like the adults on the compound, I feel like that's different. You know, sans grandma, who sometimes, you know, in a second doesn't know what just happened. So she doesn't really count, or Parker or Grace. So, you know, between the four of us, I think that all secrets are kind of known because...
Right.
But if it's anyone outside of here, I tell everyone. Do you know what I mean? I don't care who it is. If anyone else outside of this little compound says anything to me and they're like, this is a secret, you bet your sweet ass that everyone in this property knows.
Right.
You know, like, that's not how I function.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and there are many things that I cannot tell the children.
Oh, yeah.
Only because, you know, then Grace will take it to school and talk about how... you know, this thing happened and have no context.
Yeah. Or she'll just perseverate over nothing, because that's what she does.
Right.
Sometimes, and it's her own feeling, she feels how she feels, and that's fine. But sometimes she gets obsessive over things that are a non-issue.
Yes.
And will turn it into an issue.
Yes.
And mostly, like, by the point, like, here's a perfect example. Last time you guys all went to Disneyland was for your birthday 2 years ago.
Yes.
You drove down. She ate at a restaurant, allergic reaction, something, right? Woke up, allergic reaction, something happened.
Yeah, she woke up with one eye was puffy.
Right. And so now...
She kind of looked like someone popped her in the eye.
Well, have you met her?
Well...
Now, 2 years later, she is telling me, well, we're going on vacation soon. We gotta make sure we bring medicine because in case... And I'm like, if you tell me your eye... is going to get puffy one more time. Like, one time in her life, her eye got puffy on vacation. And now it's anytime she leaves the house, her eye might swell up. Or she eats breakfast.
And one time, we had one of those, like, pre-made stir-fry where it's, like, stir-fry all the sauce, all the ingredients, throw it in a pan with a little oil and cook it up.
Easy.
Something in the sauce did not agree with her system, and she, within minutes, had welts.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, those are hives.
Oh,
that's an allergic reaction. Now, every time I cook any vegetable, well, I hope I don't break out. I hope I don't have an allergic reaction.
You're trying to murder me.
Like, these are plain steamed broccoli.
Yeah,
I think
what
it'd
are
be
you talking about?
You know, whatever. And the other thing is, when we were in Disneyland last time, there was, the last day we were there, we were getting ready to leave, there were people out front protesting, and I know I've talked about this before. They were protesting as Disneyland supports the gays, and so they're taking your children to hell, and they're, you know, promoting pedophilia and blah, blah, blah. Well, so they're standing out in front of the, like, right where the gateway is where you walk in. There's the very kind of narrow little entranceway where you go for foot. It's just foot traffic. It's not any automobile traffic. And so they're right there with their signs and their chanting and their bullhorns and their nonsense.
Bullshit, yeah.
Well, she was real mad, you know, understandably, because it was stupid.
Yep.
And so she shouts at them, nobody cares.
Of course.
Whatever. Not that they could hear her because she was so far enough away. But to this day, well, I hope those protesters aren't there. And I was like, do you think they're still there from 2 years ago? They're still standing in the same spot.
Yep. She's like an old conservative woman. You know what I mean? Well, I hope those people just don't inconvenience me. And I hope that I don't get puffy from all the sodium in my diet. You know what I mean? Like, that's who she is. I feel...
She is. That is very true.
I know. It's funny, though, to have Grandma and Grace here at the same time. Because those two together... It's not like Parker and Grandma, easy peasy lemon squeezy. You know, he's like, Grandma, will you buy me an Xbox? Like, he's, you know, and she just...
okay.
Yeah, I'll get you whatever you want.
That killed me, the fact that he was like, he goes downstairs and he's all, Grandma, will you buy me an Xbox? And she's like, well, I don't know anything about that. And he's like, well, I've done my research.
Yeah, let me tell you.
Here it is. This is how much it costs. This is blah, blah, blah. And it's like, and it was $300. And... she was like, well, I don't know if I have enough money, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
She has lots of money. She's fine.
She's fine.
Anyway, So because we got this when you're getting the Xbox X, you had to have an invitation to buy it. That's because insane. They're very limited and they go out of stock very quickly. Whatever. I got one of those invitations because I have inquired enough about it that it finally was like, fine,
bitch,
we'll sell you one.
Yeah,
but it was a limited amount of time.
Yeah.
So we were running out of time, and she was, not giving him an answer, and that's fine because I was like, I don't have $300 to buy you an Xbox, and I don't want to spend $300 on an Xbox. So it was about time for the offer to expire, and I said, you go talk to your grandma and tell her that I will pay half of it, because $150, that's fine. Yeah. Whatever. And for a game system, why not? Yeah. So he goes downstairs and says, Mom said, if you want to pay half, she'll pay half. And she was upstairs quicker than a wink going, no, I will pay for the whole thing. Not. But it was like, oh, okay. She's like, I'm going to fight you over it.
She's like, I have no money, but how dare you call me poor? And you never once called her poor. It's so funny to me.
Yeah, she will quite often be like, I don't have any money. I'm too poor to do it. You don't have any cash.
Yeah, correct.
That's the difference. Yeah. You have lots of, not lots. She's not rich or anything.
No, but she also hasn't written a check. And how long? And
I know. I write her checks for her bills.
Yeah.
Whatever. But it was like, you have plenty of money.
Yes.
Well, I need to make sure I have enough to buy dinner. You have enough to buy dinner for everyone in the restaurant. You're fine.
Girl.
But you have no cash. And so I get how that feels different. Yeah.
Well, and especially generationally,
Well, yes, because when she was growing up, you had cash.
Yeah, well, and when she was growing up, you couldn't have a fucking credit card until the 70s unless a man told you you could.
Exactly.
Right? And so, I get it. And growing up with her, in the 90s, I remember her saving cash in the house. And we talked about this. I wrote a little short story when I was early adulthood called it Cold Hard Cash because she used to keep money in the freezer.
Yes, she did. And she does not anymore.
No, I know. And
I didn't even keep food in there.
I know, she doesn't keep things where they belong, so good luck. Right. Anyway, but we used to take it out, on a monthly basis, most of my childhood, and count it, because she would just randomly add money to it. And it was money. It was big bills.
Yeah, it was thousands of dollars.
Thousands of dollars, but yeah, cold hard cash my whole life. And she had a change jar that looked like a slot machine. It was a tin jar.
Oh, yeah.
And we would take that out and count it sometimes.
So, tin jar, counting the money.
Spread them all out, count it. Grandma would take it to the bank, we would cash it in. But we would, Grandma always had a tin jar that we would put change in, and she always kept cash in the freezer. Using her debit card felt foreign to me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I remember going to the bank and her having a debit card, but her debit card was always clean, not used, right?
Right. Well, and I don't think she's ever used it in an ATM.
Right. No.
She doesn't know how. No, I know that when she asked me to get cash for her when she was in the hospital. Oh, no. She asked me to... This was years ago when she was still working. She asked me to take all of her checks, because she had a shit ton of checks from her jobs, and take them to the bank. And so I just went to the ATM and deposited them all. And she was like, oh, I don't know how to do that. I don't think I can do that. I was like,
you can.
You can't, but I can. Yeah, I've used an ATM. It's super easy and better than having to talk to people.
Agreed. But yeah, everything was a check. Grandma wrote checks for everything.
Yes.
That's what I remember. But yeah, it's just interesting things. I mean, growing up and being predominantly raised by, she was my grandma, being raised by my grandma, it's just interesting things the older generation did. You know what I mean?
Sure.
How she preferred her coffee. She doesn't like electric plug into the wall coffee pots.
Nope.
She wants the, whatever it's made of.
Percolator.
Yeah, she wants the percolator. It's a metal pitcher that you put on, a stovetop, and it bubbles and boils, and you put grounds in.
It literally... Boils. It's boiling.
Yeah.
And she would pour, as it was still boiling, because you could see the coffee, churning up into the little glass thing on the top. You could see it literally boiling, and she'd pour it into a cup and start drinking. I'm like,
insane.
What is she? Do you have a Teflon mouth?
Honestly,
it's like, what the hell?
Just all the things I think I learned a lot. You know what I mean? Just things that I wouldn't have learned from another an earlier generation. But that's how I started drinking coffee, was right off the stove in a percolator. Granted, it wasn't always scalding hot, but that's when I started.
Black coffee.
Black coffee, yeah. And then we would have heavy cream, and it was a treat. How funny. Yeah, just so interesting.
Yeah, that's something I never got the taste for was black coffee. Because to me, it just tastes really bitter. And I'm like, I don't understand the enjoy. I know lots of people drink coffee. But I'm a weirdo who doesn't like a lot of things that most people like. I don't understand wine.
Yeah.
Because to me, it just tastes gross.
Yeah, same.
And every time I see people drink champagne, I think, oh, that looks so yummy and refreshing with the bubbles and the whatnot. And then I have a sip of it and I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
It is to me, and I don't care if it is the cheapest, like Andre champagne, or the most expensive thing, because I've had kind of everything in between, and all of it tastes gross to me.
Gross, yeah. Sometimes I don't dislike the flavor of some alcohols. I don't like the way alcohol makes me feel.
Oh, no.
That is the reason I do not drink alcohol, because it makes me feel, everyone, kind of loose, but I feel immediately like I need to go to sleep, and I'm sick. I feel like I'm going to puke, and not in like you're so young, you've never tried alcohol. Like, no, I used to drink quite a bit in my youth. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we've told stories on the pod about you going into bars underage in San Francisco when you were in college and making some really questionable choices when you were inebriated.
Right, but also, again, growing up in the country, and especially in the 90s, parents were way loose about that shit. Again, Ashley's Sweet 16 was in the woods, and it was a bunch of high schoolers. And Joanna, my stepmother, made jungle juice, which is like heavily alcohol.
That is so gross, because you could have killed those kids.
Yeah, and their parents knew, you know what I mean? Like, not that that's acceptable, but like some parents, like, of course, wouldn't be for it, but so many were just like, yeah, as long as there's adults, it's a good time. Like, it was, and I thought because there's adults, it's a bad time, because adults and everyone's drunk, that means danger. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
I remember, and I've told this before, I just remember going to my tent and being like, everyone is wasted. I hate this, you know? It was awful. But
that is typically when I leave a party.
Oh,
If I'm at a party, whatever the party is, a barbecue, family party, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. When folks start getting just that one drink too far, then I'm like, you know what? It's time to go. It has been so fun and love. Y'all gotta go. And so if I leave your party real early because you were drunk and I have to get away from you. But the other thing is I just don't like parties. I really don't. I never have.
Okay.
I don't, because my thing is, and I know this is so random and silly, but I don't want to have to go like make small talk with people that I don't know. So if I'm at a party and I know everyone there or most everyone, I'm fine.
Totally.
But I still, after a while, I feel just kind of like it's all kind of closing in on me and I gotta go. Okay, I gotta get out of there. Just like, oof, too many people. Even if it is all my friends. Like, I'm gonna go to a birthday party right before my birthday, and not for me, but for a friend. And I know that I will probably do what I usually do, which is kind of stay on the outskirts of the thing. Yeah. So I don't like being in the middle of a crowd.
Yeah.
I like being in front of a crowd. I like being on the outskirts of a crowd. But I don't want to be in the middle. No, I don't want to be in the middle.
I've been to many a party in my life. And I used to really enjoy them, right? I used to think that they were kind of a good time. But I think one reason that it starts to feel like, it's closing in on you kind of is because you're sober. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because when I used to drink, I could party with anybody and everybody any hour. You know what I mean? Like when I used to drink alcohol. But I do get that. Now, the idea of going to a party with people I don't know, and I have been to like day gatherings, but still I'm like, and I've spent the appropriate amount of time here, right? I can go home. Anymore, I just am such a homebody. Conversely to what I used to be, I lived in LA and San Francisco. I went out all the time. I went out half fucking naked everywhere.
I remember a time when if you hadn't gone somewhere, if you hadn't like moved or tried a new thing or whatever, you would get like just crazed. Yeah. Like, I gotta go. I gotta do this new thing. I gotta move. I gotta go somewhere. And now you're like, do I have to leave the house?
Honestly, now I'm like, can I stay home? Can everything just be delivered to me? I don't care if I never see anything else again. Like, I've seen too much. I'm good. I'll stay here. But yeah, I remember a time when we're always doing. It's when we had foster kids, but like always going, always doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I moved to San Francisco and then I moved to LA, but I was constantly moving and doing and being a part of, and I think it burned me out because I wanted to be social. I wanted to be seen, and I wanted to be, you know, there's that thing where when it's flattering. It's a good feeling to be like desirable. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I did a lot of things so more people could see me, so I could feel desired all the time. But it's exhausting, and now I don't ever want to leave. If I could just wear like what I'm wearing right now, just comfy clothes all the time.
Yeah, or as my sister calls them, soft clothes.
Soft clothes, I like that too. My comfies.
I remember one party that I went to. I was expected at this party, and I didn't want to go just because I don't want to go to a party where I don't know most of the people.
Yep.
And it was going to be a party where I would know the host and a handful of people. So there would be more people there that I didn't know.
Yep.
And you know that would mean I'd have to schmooze, and I hate that.
Yep.
So I went. I literally talked to each person that I knew, and like, hey, how, you know, hugs, kisses, blah, 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 and then snuck out when no one was looking. Because it was like everyone then saw me, and they're like, oh, is Vesta there? Yeah. She was here.
She was here.
She's got to be here somewhere. Maybe she's outside.
Maybe she's hiding under the couch.
You know, whatever.
Maybe we should
look. Because I'm so tiny. I could get lost in it. Yeah.
Little mouse woman.
But, yeah, and I'm so quiet, too, that nobody ever knows I'm there.
That's it. Quiet.
Tiny and quiet.
Quiet
no
as
one
a
has ever
foghorn,
used
bitch.
any of
Quiet
those.
as a foghorn.
Right. But it was like, I just wanted, because I didn't want to upset the host and not come.
Yeah.
And, you know, whatever, but I was like, I also don't want to be here.
Listen, I get that. And going to parties anymore is exhausting, but I will say I do have fond memories of throwing parties. There are two memories that I have where I threw parties in Los Angeles. And it was fun because I had a Christmas party and a Halloween party. And I invited most people I worked with, and then like their significant others, and some random friends that I had, right? So I knew everybody, and it was at my house, and my dogs had costumes, and I told everyone, if you're showing up to my house for Halloween, you're in a costume. And so it was probably maybe 30 people, 25, 30 people, but I knew them all. They were all my friends, you know? And, you know, people were outside smoking and drinking and looking at the tortoise that I had at the time, and, you know, or sitting on the couch watching, there's like music videos, whatever. But I knew everybody, you know, and so
that makes it very different.
And so in like the Christmas party, it also was very similar, but it was an ugly sweater party. And I said, if you show up to my house not wearing an ugly sweater, you're not coming in. Yeah. But that was different to me. It just seemed, it is kind of tiring playing hostess.
Yeah.
Being like, are you okay? Because I have this friend, you met her a couple times, Anna. And she has a whole episode on her own, but she was like in my guest bedroom just reading a book during a party, like just you don't hang out with me, bitch. It's my house. These are all my friends, and this is my party.
So were you supposed to go into the bedroom and hang out with her while she read a book?
Well, it's just like I wouldn't just sit in one place and stay. Like I wouldn't just sit on the patio or move to the living room. Because I was the hostess, right? And she didn't like that. Because I was giving everyone else attention. So, like, it's just, sometimes it's tiring.
That, to me, that kind of is exhausting.
Yeah, I didn't need that bullshit.
If you come to a party...
Yeah.
And you get to spend time with whoever you're wanting to spend time with, awesome. But you might not get to. Yeah. And that's also the way it goes. Yeah. So, at our big 13th anniversary, our wedding anniversary, we did 13 because we're weird.
Yeah.
Instead of 20 or whatever.
What are we going to do again?
I don't know.
What's the next one?
Our next wedding anniversary is 21.
No. But what next big party?
I don't know. That's a good question. But so we had this party, and we had it at McMiniman's, and there was lots of people there.
Yeah.
And my husband, who doesn't particularly like people, was kind of in his little spot, and he was going by one of our party things, which is, if you want to talk to me, you can come over and talk to me. I'm not going to schmooze through the crowd because it makes me have anxiety.
Yeah.
But you can come talk to me, you see me, whatever. That's fine. Come sit at my table.
Totally.
And there was a limited amount of chairs at the table, so it's not like 40 people could come sit at the table.
Yeah.
But because I am my age, I think, and old school and whatever, I was like, I'm the hostess of this party. I have to talk to everyone.
Yeah.
So what I did is I literally went to each and every table and sat and talked, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever.
Yeah.
But just, blah, 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 and then moved on to the next one.
Yep.
Because I didn't want anybody to go, it was her party, she didn't even talk to me. Because I will talk to you. I will not spend, the party entertaining you.
Nor.
But one of my favorite things, so this was 8 years ago.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, 8-ish years ago. So Parker would have been 7? Right?
8 years ago?
No, he would have been 5. You're right. Yeah. I can't do math.
One of us
is a genius, and the other one is me. So He was 5.
Okay.
And he got a piece of cake. And one of my friends, who I just adore, my friend Michelle, says to Parker, she's like, ooh, that cake looks really good. And he went back over to the cake table, got a plate, brought it back, an empty plate, brought it back to Michelle and said, here's a plate, the cake's over there.
I'm dead.
I was like, that is the best thing ever. And he's 5 years old.
Yeah, a little sassy
but you ain't getting any of my cake.
Let me tell you.
But here's how you can get some. Here's a plate. There's the cake. Go.
Yeah, go. Girl, I'm not stopping you. I know.
I just thought that was brilliant.
It is funny how you say that you host, too. I wasn't obviously the hostess of this at all, but at your show, because I knew everybody, I did the same thing where I like, went to a table, chit-chatted with, like, the Hutchinsons, you know what I mean? And then Aunt Linda and Aunt Shauna, like, talked to them, you know? And then Elizabeth Lombardi, like, I just kind of, like, popped around everywhere, being like, hey, you know.
Right, but you also got to have the fun time of being the point person for my mother to tell her who each person was who was talking to her.
That was a lot of your husband, too, thank God, because I sat... Well, because Grandma sat next to me. So there was a lot of it. I had to be like, yes, this is who's speaking. You know this person. Well, and Poison talking to Grandma at your show. Grandma was all totally deer in the headlights, but loving it. Because she didn't know how to answer anything. Like, what's your name? We answered for her. You know what I mean? She was just kind of starstruck, which is just so funny to me. She was like a little kid, you know, sometimes. But yeah. Anyway, but that's how it felt. I know, and telling Grandma who all the people were, she's like, well, who did you just go say hi to? And I'm like, okay, well... How do I explain this one? You know?
Right. Just friends.
Yep.
They're all just friends.
And then the blank look I got on my face when someone came up and knelt near Grandma and was like, it's so good to see you. It's been so long. And I have no idea who it is. And I'm all, uh-oh. Like, cool. And she's looking at me like...
You're like, I'm out.
I said, oh, look, I gotta go say hi to someone. Like, I don't know who they are.
You look at the time. I'm late for the bathroom. I gotta do something.
I know. And then it's funny because I'm, like, looking at Gavin, looking at her husband, looking at Gavin, looking at Grandma being like... It's very much Rocky Horror Picture Show. It's like Rocky, Dr. Scott, Rocky, Brad, Janet. Yeah, exactly.
I can just see it.
Yeah.
That is fantastic.
Yeah,
was that my cousin Kelly who you never met?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. How would you know?
I know.
And I don't think Tia had ever met her either.
No.
So, yeah, I'd be like, I don't... Okay, you're on your own for this one.
It was very much like I was the assistant following the president, and I had, like, fucked up my role, and I didn't know who this one dignitary was.
To me, it also feels like that scene in... Devil Wears Prada, where that party, this was the, minister of blah, blah, blah. Oh, hi, how are you?
Yeah, exactly.
And then there's the one that she doesn't know, and the other assistant has to know. But it's like, yeah, it's very much
it's
like
very
that.
Much that. It's very much that.
But being, you're talking about being, uncomfortable when people get drunk and you're still sober.
Yeah.
I, working in a bar for 20 years, I felt that all the time.
Yeah, I bet.
Because of course... I'm in front of the crowd, so I'm not in the middle of the crowd, so I don't have that feeling.
Yep.
So I'm fine being in front of a crowd. I don't care how big the crowd is.
Yeah.
Put me in front of them. I'm entertaining them. It's great. Mm-hmm. And then most of the time, I would go host the show from my dressing room.
Mm. Oh, right. Okay.
Because I would have my show list. I have a speaker in my dressing room. I can hear everything.
Yeah.
And so I would stay out of the crowd.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, I might see someone I wanted to talk to, and I'd go sit in the crowd with somebody. Mm-hmm. But very rarely, because then everybody would come up to me who wanted to talk to me or touch me. And
love
whatever.
You.
And when you are a public figure, and I was just a drag queen hosting a show. So it wasn't like I was,
the Queen of England.
Right, no. But people feel like they can... touch you, they can do whatever.
Ownership,
yeah. And it's like, don't touch me. If you come up and tap me on the shoulder to get cool,
love.
But I literally one night had someone grab the back of my shirt to pull it down to look at my tattoo.
Oh, gross.
Don't touch me. Mm-mm. It's like there's a limit.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is. There's certain things that society I just think are weird, like a pregnant woman. People are like, I'm going to touch your belly. It's like, I would knock you out.
Oh my God.
That's not okay.
Yeah.
If the pregnant woman's like, hey, come feel my baby because it's kicking, cool.
Nope.
Yeah, but if you want to.
Yeah.
But I think that requires an invitation.
Yeah, agree.
Or if you have a baby, someone just coming over and like putting hands on your, no.
Absolutely not.
One time I was in Costco and Parker was a baby. He was in the car seat in the bottom of the cart.
On the basket. He was on the bottom rack of the basket.
Right, I put him under the basket because he was really taking up too much space. Yeah. But he was crying, and so I'm standing there talking to him and trying to get him to stop crying. And this old lady comes up and just puts her hands in the basket and starts. I'm like, what are you doing?
Excuse me.
Don't touch my baby.
Excuse me. Yeah.
That's just weird
Witch
to
Hazel.
me.
Excuse me, Witch Hazel, back up. Yeah. Uh-huh.
But it's like people who think that, because you're an entertainer, they can touch you however they... I've had people grab my boobs. I've had people,
horrible.
grab me. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, that's so
Would
weird.
you do that anywhere else?
Also,
would you feel comfortable touching anyone else? Maybe you would, and if so, then you need to figure some stuff out.
You need some Jesus.
Yeah.
Girl, I know. That's just horrible and gross to me. I hate that. But going to drunk people really quick, having a parent who's an alcoholic, there are telltale things about people when they've crossed the line into too drunk that literally makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Because it is, and just from what I know about my birth mother and her alcoholism, is hearing her mouth smack because it's too dry. She's now has cotton mouth essentially because she's had so much alcohol and not enough hydration that she's dry. When her facial expressions become over animated and too much. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's hyperbole of the face. And then when she moves, it's very segmented. You know what I mean? It's very much like a toddler. Steps, right. Pause, steps.
Very zombie.
Yeah. But they're in those things. And obviously language starts to get more aggressive or just more heightened. And I'm this is my out. And I found that when I stopped drinking alcohol, I was 25 because I don't really drink it a whole bunch.
Right.
I don't drink it at all anymore. And last time I had a drink, it was probably the pandemic, 2020. Because I think we were home alone, and I think we were playing a drinking game to Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and that was fun, But I felt sick to my stomach afterwards. But my point is, I don't really drink. But now, if I'm around people who do drink, I can tell because there's that moment. And you say you said it earlier, where there's that one drink too many. It is that there's just I think of it as a full empty meter on your car. It's that you've just slipped right past what's okay, and now you're
the gauge needle has pointed a little bit too far to the other end. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
As a kid too, drunk adults scared me.
Because they're unpredictable and they make bad choices.
Right, and it was because they were so unpredictable. My life was already unpredictable enough, but adults adding this authority, because all adults were authority. I was a kid, right? But adding that authority figure who's mind is chaos already in my life of chaos. It was
and their filters are now gone.
Oh.
So their behavior, their language, their choices are now all
impaired
and they're all suspect.
Yeah.
So it's and as a kid, seeing that, and I can only imagine, I grew up with an alcoholic stepfather.
Totally.
But he was relatively harmless.
Yeah, okay.
He would get drunk. He drank every day.
Yeah.
But he would get drunk and usually just fall asleep or pass out to be fair.
Yeah.
And then he would talk in his sleep when he was passed out, and it was always hilarious because he would say the weirdest shit.
I bet.
You're just what on earth?
Yeah.
But there were times where he would get belligerent because he was just drunk enough to kind of think that someone was plotting against him or whatever.
Yep.
But not drunk enough yet to pass out.
Yep.
Because he, if we were in the other room, he would be, sitting at the dinner table drinking his booze or wherever he was. And if we were in the other room, and by, a smaller house, everything's connected. But if we were in the other room and talking and not loud enough for him to hear, we were talking about him. We were whispering about him. And it was dude.
Weird.
Nobody's talking about it. Nobody cares. No one's even paying attention to you.
So weird. It does.
But this is the same drunk guy who, at my sister's wedding, came. The wedding was at our home. Mm-hmm. Came to the, didn't come to the actual service, which was in the next room. We could see him. We were in the living room, and because it was a small wedding.
Yeah.
But he's at the table drinking in his sweatshirt and jeans while we're all in the living, dressed up. Yes.
Yeah.
But that's,
crazy.
Drunk. That's drunks.
It's so crazy. That makes sense to me because now, BJ, who's my biological father, as you know, because you're related to him too, unfortunately.
Allegedly.
it explains a lot of his parenting. Like, he didn't pick up grandma's parenting. He picked up his fucking father's parenting.
Yeah.
And BJ wasn't alcoholic. I can probably count on my hand how many times I remember him actually drunk, because that wasn't his beef.
Right.
He needed medication, and he needed to not consume so much sugar, and was unmedicated, and his whole diet was sugar.
Sugar, right.
Yeah, sugar and, like, red meat. So, good for him. But I've talked about this before, but Grandpa Jack being like, oh, I can't hear you, so you're talking about me. And being in the next room, that's how I ate most of my dinners growing up in that household, would be BJ and Joanna in another room and us at the table, but we weren't allowed to talk. Like, because I remember we weren't allowed to.
That is bizarre
yeah,
to me.
We weren't
I remember that, but it's so bizarre.
Yeah, we couldn't really make too much. We couldn't be too loud. We couldn't laugh. And so then it just became no more talking. And it makes sense. I see the correlation between.
Yeah.
But I still don't get it. If Jack was so absentee, why did BJ cling on to it? Because he's a man?
Well, he was there. He left when I was 15, I think, which would have made him, I think, 12.
Okay.
So he was there for a good portion of his life.
And then did he see him on weekends?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Well, when Jack was up to being a part-time father.
Yeah.
Whatever. But, yeah.
Weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know that I've talked about that too, but Jack was such a horrible human being. And I attribute most of that to alcohol.
Sure, yeah.
Because when he got dementia and couldn't drink anymore, he was just a nice old man.
Yeah.
So
weird.
I was like, who this?
Yeah.
New phone, who this?
Yeah,
I was like, what? But I think for me, being around it, I think for me the biggest thing is the unpredictability.
Yeah.
You never know what's going to set someone off.
Yeah.
What's going to make them mad, or what's going to make them cry, or what's going to make them think they can touch you, or whatever. And I've been around all of those things, because being in the bar, I used to say that there are only a certain number of drunk personalities.
Yep.
There's the drunk who just gets belligerent. Give them a little, and they're just an asshole.
Yep.
And you're like, nope. And then there's the drunk who loves everyone and wants to hug you and kiss you and tell you how much they love you. Can't stand that either. There's the drunk who thinks they're wise.
Oof.
And they're going to impart some knowledge on your ass.
Because
they know some stuff now. They have enough alcohol in them that they're going to, impart any of the wisdom of the world on you. And it's like, shut up.
Honestly, I hate that.
And then there are the ones who just basically pass out or fall asleep or whatever.
Good.
And I was like, those are the ones. Yeah, I would rather you be around, because then you're knocked out and I don't have to talk to you.
Agreed.
Because all the rest of them irritate me. And I've been at family things where I've had, uncles or whoever come up to me when they've had a little too much to drink and want to have this philosophical conversation with me. I'm like, no.
Absolutely not.
First of all, well, and like the last time this happened to me, one of my uncles, I was sitting and talking to my cousin's wife, who was just delightful. And we were sitting there having a chat, and we were both at she was at the side of the table, and I was at the end of the table. We were really close, kind of like we are right now.
Yeah.
And my uncle comes over, sticks his face, like literally between us, in the middle of the conversation to talk to me.
I hate that.
Because he wanted to tell me about how my father, that his last dying breath was to say how he had regrets, that he wished he'd been a better father. Now, just a little catch up, and I know I've talked about this before, but he wasn't a father.
Yeah.
Not to me. I mean, I met him when I was 14, and then saw him a handful of times.
Crazy.
Yeah. So he was no kind of father to me. I mean, whatever. And he paid child support one time, one check, $50.
Okay.
That was it for 3 kids.
Yep.
So to say to me he regretted not being a better father is like saying, I regret that I'm not more of a millionaire, because I'm none of. So it's like,
you're not a millionaire.
Whatever. But it was the whole you feel empowered enough to stick your face in the middle of a conversation. How rude. And then to impart some bullshit on me that didn't even happen.
And who cares?
And I don't care.
Yeah.
And I just looked at him and I was like, dude,
Yeah.
A, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
But B, too little too late.
Oh.
He's dead, and he's been dead for some time now. This wasn't like fresh.
No.
And why are we having that conversation?
No.
And I also knew the truth because I had had a conversation with my sister Linda, who I adore, who listens to our podcast. Hi, Linda. We love you. But she had told me what really occurred is mostly at his deathbed, he couldn't talk. So all these people who were coming away with, his last dying words were this, that, or the other thing. It was like, it's all bullshit.
Yep.
None of it was true, but it was like, I'm drunk, so I'm going to tell you a story, and you're going to buy it. No, I'm not.
No, I'm not. I'm not buying anything.
This glass in front of me is Diet Coke.
I'm not in the market for a new House of Lies, so thanks for asking, but I'm not going to buy it today. You know what I mean?
No, exactly.
Yeah.
And why?
I also, there's this interesting thing that I think is really fucking irritating in our culture. Just like absentee parents, people still thinking that they have some sort of draw or pull, or like that parent has any sort of say over you is frustrating as fuck.
Right.
Like, it's just irritating to me. And then, to have people stick up for them. Like, well, you don't know. Like, I don't care. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
I may not know. I also don't fucking care because there's no excuse to me. Like, my biological mother used to do this shit all the time. Where there'd be something I would do. Well, who cares? Drinking as a teenager. What the fuck ever. And it's not like she was super against it. But she would say things like, well, I didn't raise you to do that. And I was like,
you didn't raise me. Right.
Yeah. So, like, I don't give... It's like, so in the... as an adult, when she says things, when she goes off and she's belligerent, and she says things like, well, I just don't like who you've become. And I said, oh, okay. Like, I never asked, and I didn't give a shit.
And I don't like who you are, so perfect.
Right. Like, that's not a problem.
I remember one time, so I'm an adult, I'm married, and I had gone down to Reno, and my father and his wife lived in Reno at the time, and they had a bar.
Yeah.
And, which I remember I told you was a swinger
bar.
And he says to me, at one point when we're talking, I hope you don't ever worry about what I think about you. And I was like, it never occurs to me
to think
what
about
you think about me. I don't care.
Well,
you are just another human. You planted the seed. That's all. You were a sperm donor.
Yep.
That's all.
Yep.
I mean...
And that seed has been planted in many other women.
Yeah, right?
Yep.
And the only good thing, that I can say that you did was you created some pretty cool kids, because I love my sister. But it's like, why on earth would I give any credence to anything you might think about me?
Yep.
If had I been raised with you, maybe. But it's like, no.
Yep. I remember it was when I lived in Portland before I even moved to San Francisco. So I was like 18. I remember calling my sperm donor because that day it was like his birthday, so June. And my Ashley and Michaela, my sisters, called me and were like, it's Dad's birthday. You should call him. And I was like, why? I have nothing to say, whatever. But I did. And I tried a different route, and I was apologetic, right? About just like I could have handled things better. Whatever. Why did I run away? I could have, whatever, talked about shit. I was like 18. And he was like not receptive of it at all and just said to me, well, now you need to go apologize to your grandmother. Like, that's all he said to me. There was no like any sort of like parent-child relationship. So I said, oh, I tried. All done. You know what I mean? Like,
well, yeah.
Don't need
but
that.
You had done your thing.
I tried.
You had, extended that olive branch.
Yep.
And it was for naught.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
And I said, for the better.
Probably, yeah, because that is a toxic relationship.
Ooh, yeah.
There's not... Trying to have a relationship with an abusive person is never going to be good. And it's never... No matter how you approach it, no matter what... It's never going to be... satisfying, it's never going to be healthy, and it's never going to be what you hope it's going to be.
Nope, unless that person can realize and go to therapy, but narcissists usually can't. You know what I mean? On their own. But
well, and the thing is, I understand that this happens, is that folks who are in abusive relationships keep going back because they're hoping that that's going to change. They're hoping that they are enough to be like, well, I realize I was wrong.
Yep.
I was horrible. I'm going to change for you. I love you, or whatever. And whether that's a parent-child or husband, wife, whatever, that's not how it works. Because for whatever reason, whatever their thing is, you're not going to make any difference because clearly growing up you didn't make any difference. No. So why would you now?
Yeah.
And why even go back to be part of that?
Yeah.
And as an adult, I know my thing is I don't want any part of any of that nonsense. If you are abusive, I want no part of you.
Yeah.
If you are a drunk, if you're a drug addict, if you're any of those things, or even if you're just an asshole, if you're a narcissistic asshole, I don't want any part of you.
Yeah.
I want to be surrounded by people who are empathetic and who love me for me and aren't like, well, if you just did this one thing, if you were thinner, if you did this, if you were smart, if whatever it is. Because, growing up with my grandfather, who was horribly abusive, his whole thing was there was nothing you could do to please him. Because...
miserable.
And so me, growing up, fat kid, I was fat from birth.
Yeah.
And, so I was always a fat kid, but I was also pigeon-toed, so I was clumsy. And then I had the defects in my knees, so that would make me fall as well. And so he just saw me as this fat, clumsy... oaf of a child.
Yeah.
And so that's how he treated me.
How awful.
And he treated me. I remember the last time I had any kind of conversation with him, he had come out to, I was on my own. I lived on my own in Portland, but I was out visiting my mother. And he and my grandmother had come out and brought something. I don't remember now what it was, and it doesn't matter. But he was asking if somebody could help him unload it from the back of their truck. And I was like, sure, I can do that. And he goes, well, are you sure you can do that without dropping it and breaking it? You know how clumsy you are. And I was like, you know what? No, I'm not sure. So I'm just going to let someone else do it. Thanks, I'm done. It's like, I offer you help because you asked for help. And then you're going to be an asshole about it?
But it's not good enough.
No,
that help
isn't
good enough. I know, that shit's irritating.
No. And I also, one of the things I learned as an older person is to just not... I'm not going to work to make you like me. No. I'm not going to say, why doesn't this person like me? I don't care.
Yeah, who cares?
I remember one time I was watching the show Coach with Craig T. Nelson. Loved that show.
Yeah,
loved him. I used to have the biggest crush on him.
Well, makes sense.
I know, because he was a hottie. Anyway, mostly I liked his voice, but he was also a big guy who was just good looking. Anyway, but his girlfriend had a friend who he couldn't stand.
Okay.
Because she was Little Miss Sunshine. Everything came out of her mouth was little rays of happiness, and it drove him crazy.
Sure.
Because he was like, it didn't feel real.
Yep.
Because nobody's happy all the time. Nobody is a ray of sunshine all the time.
Right.
And so he didn't like her.
Right.
And she made it her mission to make him like her, which made him like her less.
Yep.
And he had a whole conversation with her about, you don't have to like everyone, and conversely, everyone doesn't have to like you.
Yeah.
And when he said this, honest to God, it was like so liberating for me because he said, do you like everyone? No, you don't.
Right.
So why is everyone going to like you? You're just not everyone's cup of tea.
Yeah.
And you don't need to care about that.
No.
Because, and so literally hearing him say that, and yes, it was a silly sitcom in the 90s, but I was all... oh my God, that is so true.
Yeah.
Because no matter what you do, you're not going to be somebody's cup of tea.
Nope.
They're going to think you're too something. You're too big, you're too brassy, you're too blah, 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 fill in the blank. And my whole life, my whole adult life, I've often had people think that I'm too much.
Yeah.
And I've had women specifically that I worked with tell me, well, when I first met you, I was intimidated by you. And I was like, why?
Fucking life. Yeah.
It's like, same. Well, because you speak your mind and you come into a situation all sure of yourself and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, that's mostly bravado.
Yeah.
That's fake.
Yeah.
That's me just being like, well, I'm here.
Yeah.
So I better act like I know what I'm doing and I'm fine and I'm comfortable until I really am. Fake it till you make it, man.
Yeah.
But they'd be like, oh, because you just walk into a room and you don't seem to care what other people think. And it's like, well, because they don't.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a really interesting thing, too, because most of my working life, I've been told I'm intimidating. My whole, because I'm tall.
But I'm not intimidating. You're intimidated.
Exactly.
It's all different.
And that's very true, right? And it's because, I'm tall and how I carry myself. And, a lot of it, I wear a full face of makeup, whatever. But my whole life, you're intimidating. How you speak, I'm sarcastic, whatever. But I think that is really interesting because I think as children, like, being abused or bullied for all of our lives, right? Like, no matter where we go, no matter what we do, we're going to be abused, we're going to be bullied, people are going to hate us for no reason. So why not step into that room as you are? Why not step into that room completely sure of yourself, considering we've stepped into that room completely unsure of ourselves and survived it, and people still hated us. No matter how hard we tried, people still hate us. So why not? What's it going to do? They're going to kick my ass either way, basically. Right. You know?
Well, and the thing, especially about being a fat woman, is people expect that you should make yourself at least make yourself somehow smaller.
Yeah.
They want you to literally make yourself smaller, but they want you to not take up as much air in the room because you should be ashamed that you're this size.
Yep.
Why aren't you trying to achieve that, status thing that I think you should have by being thin, being young, being whatever? Well, because this is me.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I remember one time I was watching Oprah, and this woman came on, who was a big woman, and she said, my whole life, I really I struggled because of my weight. And I kept thinking, well, I'll be happy when.
Yeah.
I'll be happy when I drop a dress size. I'll be happy when I meet the right guy. I'll be happy when blah, blah, blah. And she said, I got to a point in my life where my life was passing me by and I was waiting for happy. And she's like, fuck that. Bless you. She said, fuck that, because what if I never drop 2 dress sizes? What if I never meet a man? What if I never achieve those things that are somehow a marker of happiness?
Yeah.
I need to be me.
Yep.
I'm not getting younger, so I'm certainly never going to be at this stage again. And if I want to do something, I just need to do it. And I need to love me because this is me, warts and all. And that affected me so much because I was like, well, that's... whether I'm thinner or fatter or whatever, this is me. This is the only me that there will ever be.
Yep.
And if you don't like it, cool beans.
Right.
I don't give a shit.
Well, the fact we put so much...
But I love me.
Exactly. And we put so much pretend value on people based on their body is so weird. And based on identity, so that's like everything, right? Like your skin color and your orientations of all sorts, right? Like we put value on those things, which is, there is no inherent value either way.
No.
But what's interesting is just how much the idyllic woman's body, how much that has changed in imagery. Because, and it makes sense. Women's bodies, more, voluptuous, plump, thick women, being a fatter body type was more attractive. And if you think about it, it makes sense. In a time of the plague and famine and,
Sure. you want to get yourself a sturdy woman
yeah.
who's going to be able to survive.
Well, and being...
And pull a plow or whatever.
Right, exactly. But also being a fatter person was a sign of wealth, was a sign of good fortune, because... In a time where no one had any food, why were you fat, right? Everyone's rail thin, emaciated, and you're a fat person. Like, that was a good sign. People wanted that.
Right.
And
if you look at, the time of, Reuben.
Yeah.
His women, there's a reason it's called Reuben-esque. Yeah. His women are all thick and meaty and whatever. None of them are skinny little waifish women.
No.
And that was considered beautiful. And the thing now is, I think everybody needs to get past... that what they think is the norm.
Yeah.
It's funny to me when someone will say, oh, well, so-and-so does that and that's just not normal. It's not your norm.
Yeah.
It's not normal in your... And I remember talking to a friend one day and they said, well, I don't do that because that's just not normal. And I said, in your house. In your family.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make it abnormal. Because if somebody else does this behavior, whatever it is, unless it is super weird, like, you're going outside naked and running through the streets and screaming at cars or something.
Yeah.
But if you, eat a different thing or do things a different way, or, it's like as simple as, which way you put the toilet paper on the roll, it's your norm.
Yep.
And we need to stop comparing other people to our norm.
Well, yes, and here's another thing, too, is in social science, things are normal, and all that means is they took the population and how many people are diabetic, or what are people's blood sugars, right? And they said, this is normal, meaning this is what the norm is, this is what most people have in the United States. What is the normal race, right? And these are things that can be considered normal, but... normal and abnormal, we don't need to give that, again, a value. Because, like, yes, when you put it in parameters of, oh, in your household, that's not normal, that's abnormal. But abnormal does, again, not mean bad. And we just, it's such a weird culture to grow up in, again, being so, like, prude, yet openly hypersexual. Yeah. It's such a black and white, it's such a you know, and it's, what is it called? A false dichotomy. None of these things, all this black and white thinking we have, isn't true. And thinking, right. Like, if something's normal and that's good, then abnormal means bad. Like, no. And one thing you learn, one of the basic things you learn in sociology is that deviance is normal. You have to have deviance in society. And, like, one thing that I learned that was really mind-blowing to me, you know, crime is deviance, beating people, you know, shooting people, rape, whatever. All these things are a deviant to the norm, right? But if we said, let's say we didn't have deviance, all sexualities, all genders, all everything were just accepted as the same, right? Then we would consider something else a deviant, right? We would see people with blue eyes as deviant, or we'd see people with, you know, brown hair as being deviant. Right. So if you can never ever get rid of deviance. So the whole idea of this utopia where there is no, you know, crime or no deviance, that's not normal. There has to be deviance for society to function. And so again, the idea of things being abnormal, we need that for society to work. We can't have everything be monolithic. It can't all be the same thing, or society won't function. Right. You know?
Right. And I have tried very hard especially since becoming a parent, to replace the word normal with typical.
Typical, yeah.
Average. Mm-hmm. Like, it's typical for, you know, someone to do this. Or the typically developing brain, you will, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Because I have children who don't have typically developing brains.
Most people on this compound probably don't have.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
We all have
But it's like, instead of saying, well, you know, it's not normal or there's something wrong, it's like, it's just not...
Yeah.
Typical.
Yeah.
It's not the average, it's not whatever, but it is what it is. Yeah. And so there's no reason to make it seem like it's wrong because it's not what you think of as normal.
Do you know what's funny is, like, within autism, ADHD, ADD, like neurotypical, neurodivergent.
Yeah.
So now considering things as typical.
By the way, I love the word neurodivergent.
Yeah. Well, talking about things as typical and divergent, I think it's great. I think having more language for things, to me, it kind of just feels like we're just rebranding the words normal and abnormal. Do you know what I mean? And it may be making them more inclusive, but I think over time it just kind of means the same thing. To a degree,
it does.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. But I think instead of being like, you're not normal, it's like, well, when your brain was developing, it took a little path, you know, some other way. It had a different offshoot. It had whatever. But making it not sound like a bad thing. Right. It's like, you know, because... You know, my daughter has ADHD and autism and whatever, and it's like, and so do we do things differently with her? Yeah. But do we make it so it's like, well, you don't understand this, or you can't do this? It's like, no.
And it's just really interesting. I don't know, you know what I mean? It's just language and how it changes over time, but, you know, using new language is important. That's how anything progresses, right? But think about all the words, too, that that were used in, you know, a derogatory way that really kind of aren't anymore. Like, how many, you know, we can think about all the derogatory terms for gay people, for black people.
Sure.
But now they're taken back. You know, even terms like slut, whore, all these terms are taken back as a term of, like, I'm a slut, you know, like the slut walk, like, so it's...
Right. Well, and I love that, you know, it's like, the whole thing now is like, you're slut-shaming someone because their morality is different from yours.
Yes, and so I think it's interesting to just... Now the term for someone who makes money by selling their body essentially is a sex worker. But now slut has come back and girls are owning slut. People are owning slut. The N-word, the F-A-G-G-O-T word, you know. All these words that people take back, that communities take back. So we do make more inclusive language. But the language that was bad doesn't always stay bad because nothing ever stays the thing. Right. You know what I mean? Right. Everything is very, very fluid. Yeah. So it's just
everything old is new again.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of time, not only is it new, but it means something different.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. And speaking of old lady, so, you know, if people want to send you money for your birthday, or
yeah,
you have what's your Venmo or your
oh
whatever? Because I think we should put it out there, because in case someone wants to send you a couple bucks, or you know,
so my Venmo is very easy.
Okay,
it's just at Annika, ANNIKA hyphen Diaz, DIAZ. That's it.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, so if anybody wants to give her a little birthday gift,
oh my god, yeah,
then feel free. And if not, just send us a little birthday message, or tell us what you think of our show. Or
I'm now 35 and I just graduated college. Now I'm looking into grad school. So if you could just send me money,
right.
please,
just send me all your money.
Listen, if you're an Oregonian, you're getting a kicker. So I expect some payment. Do you understand me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well. So, but if they want to send it, you gave your Venmo, and if you want to just send a little message, that's at itwouldseemasthough@gmail.com. And like, share, subscribe, do all the things. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your family, have everybody listen to us. And if we changed your mind about something, awesome. And if we didn't,
if not,
maybe
tell me
you
why.
Something,
If I made you mad, tell me why.
Oh my god, I'm so mad.
I always want to know that, though. I want to know if I pissed someone off. I just want to know if I made you feel something. Tell me that.
Whatever it is.
How you feel it. Is it good, bad, ugly? I won't be mad. I want that. Give me the discourse.
Do you know what I'm feeling right now?
What?
Like I need to leave and be done.
I am tired. Let's go.
I'm tired. I need birthday cake. But we're not having cake. We're having cheesecake.
Cheesecake.
For dinner. So I'm getting out of here, man.
I know. We're leaving. Bye.
Bye.
It would seem as though...